Let's rock and roll. Well, here we are, Troy Francis. I am in Bogota, Colombia, and I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Bonaparte, sex expert, sex coach, Frenchman. How are you, sir?
Very, very good. Merci beaucoup.
Très bien. Good to meet you, man. And actually, listen, we only met yesterday. Obviously, I've been aware of you for some time because you work with James Tusk. Yeah. And so I'm aware of your work, let's say. But we hadn't actually met. We've done a couple of online things, but we hadn't actually met until yesterday. And it turns out, even though you're French, you're a really good guy. So so there you go. Exactly. But no, I mean, we can talk a bit more because we were talking yesterday in the car. Like I've always actually really liked French culture, and the interesting thing as well is the French culture. It's a little bit. You guys are, you got that sexy kind of vibe going on, haven't you?
Yeah.
Did you want to?
Like just the ménage à trois, for example. When you think about like threesomes, ménage à trois is very famous. Like French has always been a culture, it's a sensual culture, romantic culture.
Why do you think that is? Because I guess you're a Latin culture, right? I mean, do you think it's a similar way to the fact that the Latinas here are they've got that sensuality? Do you think that's similar with the French?
So it's similar with the French, but the thing is with Italian and Spanish, I feel that it's sexual. French, it's more romantic, sensual, about the culture, the literature as well. Like, Spanish and Italian, it's more like in the blood. They're really fierce in the bedroom and stuff. French, it's more like an art de vivre. Like, how I behave every single day. It's like being a gentleman, being a romantic lover.
Yeah. He's getting me with those. He's getting me with those hunter eyes already. I can see how it works. I can see how it works for the ladies.
French words.
Exactly. And we brought some accessories along as well. So yeah. So we might be discussing this later. But listen, man. Anyway, obviously keen to get to know you a bit more. So you've sort of you've been working with James Tusk, who I work with obviously a lot as well. For people who don't know, he's a top day game coach. He teaches dating and dating mindsets, confidence, and getting guys out there and having sex, basically. So I guess all right, tell us how you got into sex coaching in the first place, and then how did you meet James, and how did that all come about?
Really long story, but long story short, I'm a former personal trainer. So that's how, as a PT, training people in the gym. I'm a former porn addict. I'm a former premature ejaculator as well. So a lot of sexual shame, a lot of problems in the bedroom. And then I started to work on myself. To get better, really.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that I got better by myself, I was able to get rid of porn addiction. I was able to get rid of premature ejaculation to last longer in bed. And then when I became a trainer, I was like, interesting, maybe I can mix both. But for me, like working with sex was a sexologist. You had like the medical, diploma and stuff. But then I went to a festival and I met a sex coach, 50 years old, Australian woman, crazy woman. And we had a chat, and after 1 hour talking, she told me like, "You're made for that. You're going to be a sex coach."
Really? Yeah. That's really fascinating. So it wasn't ever a sort of, you weren't at school like, one day I would be sex coach. It was like literally, it's kind of cool that though, isn't it? Sometimes in life these things come along and we find our calling. But it was interesting. You talked about porn addiction and also, premature ejaculation. But I mean, porn addiction. I think that's something that a lot of guys really suffer with. Yeah. It's something that I see talked about a lot online, and particularly in these men's spaces. I mean, do you think that there's almost an epidemic of this now?
So it's almost an epidemic because like it's taboo. Like it's something that 90% of men, they suffer. Like it's like 99% of men, they've watched porn. You can't say 100%, but it's like 100%, But because it's so taboo, we can fix it, we can help men, but we don't want to talk about it. For me, that's the problem. And that's the kind of taboos that I want to break as well.
Yeah, because I'm just guessing here, but I reckon what happens, in some of the spaces I follow, I'm on Twitter, I'm following like a lot of guys who are in the men's self-help and dating coaching and stuff, and there is quite a lot of talk about porn on that, and like, no, guys, you need to get off the porn, you need to stop fapping, and all of that. But
the no-fap community.
but if you think about that, it's actually a very small, the community is in global terms is very small. So I reckon there's a lot of dudes out there who are just using this stuff. They're not even really aware of how harmful it is for them, and it's probably damaging their sex life. Because the other thing about it, of course, is that it kind of saps your drive, doesn't it, to actually go out and meet real life women.
So there's two things that is problematic for men. It's the porn addiction, because you have a skewed vision of sex and what to do with women.
Yeah.
But it's also the excessive ejaculation. Like usually men who have porn addiction, they ejaculate like almost every day, maybe a few times a day. They're introvert, they stay at home, they don't have any more energy, they don't do anything, they just watch TV, and that's feeding the vicious circle, you know?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, guys, I don't know if you've noticed, but the waistcoat gang, we both come properly dressed for this. And I was saying,
Tattoos as well.
waistcoat, tattoos, and I was saying it looks like this little corner of the bar. It's almost like a French cafe. You know, we're getting that kind of like Edith Piaf vibes going. But so what about Tusk then, James Tusk? So how did you first meet him, and how did you start kind of collaborating with him?
So interestingly, when I started to be a sex coach, I was like, okay, it's good to be a sex coach, but I need a business coach as well.
Yeah.
So I was in touch I got a business coach in London, and this business coach told me, hey, like there is a guy who wants to be in touch with you. He's a dating coach, and I think that you would go along. And we started from there. And at the beginning, it's funny because James told me that it was like, because I didn't know you, I didn't trust you so much, or I was like more feeling you and stuff. But then he started to recommend me clients, and I had really, really good with them. And it was like when he realized that the clients were super happy and I had a really good result with him, it was like, okay, let's time to push that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because obviously, in this game, in this business, it takes a while to sort of get to know people and trust them. I mean, like for myself with James, I mean, I was aware of his content. I was doing similar sorts of stuff, but we never actually met until really a few years ago. And we met through a cameraman who was filming James and also filming me, because it's quite specialised sort of filming. So we met through this guy Dan, and we just hit it off immediately. We got on really well. I think we've got a similar kind of viewpoint about a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's
complimenting each other. Really like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a great guy, and he's got. But I think we coincide in views on a lot of things.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, he's an interesting, character. I mean, he's a larger than life character, and he's quite excessive. But I was myself. I mean, I've calmed down a lot now. I'm with the mineral water and everything else. But
it's just
yeah. But yeah, man. I resonate with him a lot, which is cool, and it's great that you're on board as well. So what else?
And I'm curious, actually, like, do you know a lot of sex coach? Because that's such a small niche, and in the dating market, you're like, we're fitting perfectly each other, like the men that I can help the most are the guys that have been walking through their game. They get better at seducing women, but they're like, shit, what do I do now?
Well, yeah, and so the answer is I don't actually know any other sex coaches. You're the only one I know. I have, however, recently been working with Tiffany Fox. Hello, Tiffany, if you're watching this. She is actually a porn actress, although she's leaving the industry. Yeah. And we've been doing a bit of content with her. I've been doing some videos. She's based like in the States, she's in Miami. We've been doing some content where we're talking to her about sex, and she's coming back from a female point of view. So I've been trying. So with her, we're doing some work. But I think, obviously, having a male sex coach, it's a different thing, isn't it? Because obviously women and men are just coming at this from a slightly different angle. I mean, she can say, well, I like these things, this is what I think women like, but at the same time, like with any female dating coach, if you haven't actually been through that process, although she kind of likes girls as well, but you know what I'm saying, like I think a man can bring a different aspect to this. I mean, so it sounds like what you're saying, that when you work with these guys, it's like really transformational. I mean, what's your sort of, I guess you have a whole different kind of range of clients, but what's your sort of like avatar kind of regular client that you might get?
So it's actually clear. Like, it's mainly introvert men that have a good financial situation. They have a good situation in general. Yeah. Their life is kind of sorted out. They go to the gym, they train, they consume good content, they like to read books and things like that. But they do realize that they never had a masculine figure in their life. Yeah. They never had someone teaching them how to approach women, how to talk to women, and how to have great sex. And so these men, they realize like 30, 40 years old, like, shit, I have almost all my life sorted, but the dating and the sex part of it is missing.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how all this fits together, because I came at this through the game PUA kind of path, if you like. Yeah, and the emphasis was always in the older days. The emphasis was always largely on verbal game. Really, it's like I'll say these things, tell this story, tease her. Yeah, there was all these things. Do these things, and then she will become attracted to you. And some of that stuff is great advice. And there's a lot of stuff like don't put her on a pedestal. You're the prize. Those kinds of things are really great mindsets to have. But increasingly, what we've realised going forward is that so much of this is, for a start, it's about value anyway. Like if you look like a bunch of crap and you're going in and approaching top tier ladies, obviously they're probably not going to be into that. So value, fitness, finances, hormones, all that stuff. But also there's the sexual side to it, because what I find is that there's kind of two groups of guys. There's guys who aren't approaching at all, and obviously they need to be approaching, being proactive. But secondly, there's guys who do approach, or they approach a bit, but they're doing it in this very nice guy, friendly, safe sort of way, and they're not emanating sexuality. And I think that is a big hole that needs to be filled. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying, though? Could you maybe talk a little bit about that, like the sexual side, even just in the approach, how that comes into it?
So, what really we're talking about here is masculinity and authentic masculinity. Like for me today, there is a war on masculinity, and so many men, they come to me and they say, my father never taught me how to be a man. I never had the Uncle Roger or my big brother who told me how to be my authentic self, how to be naturally confident. It's not about being a PUA or stuff like that. It's developing your own confidence, your own masculinity, so that you can own it and show it to women. Because guys, women, they want you to be masculine. Like 90% of women today, they want the man to do the first step. They want the man to talk about sex in a respectful yet sexy way. It's almost never that the woman will talk about sex the first. So you have to take that into consideration. Yeah, definitely. And it seems to me that what you give out is kind of what you get back. So if you engage with a woman, and look, many of the guys that we coach, they're decent looking guys, they're good looking guys, they're in shape, theoretically they're doing all the right things. But then they approach the woman and it's very sort of, there's no spark there. And I believe it's our job to create that spark. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to create that with every woman, because not every woman's going to be open to you, fine. But the ones that are kind of open to you, you need to be bringing that, like, in the eye contact, and bringing the touch, and bringing that sexuality into it. And to me, that seems to be what unlocks the door. You know what I'm saying? If you do that, then she's like, oh, okay, right, he's one of those guys. And if you're one of those guys in her mind, she's more likely to be the guy you're going to go home with. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you're like super nice, super polite, but not sexy, she's like, yeah, okay, he's all right. Maybe I'll put him on the back burner as a boyfriend, and we'll date. Or friend zone. So I think it's really, really important. But part of this maybe is sexual confidence, though, because if the dude is thinking in the back of his head, well, if I did get her back to the bedroom, I kind of don't know what I'm doing anyway, that's going to have a knock-on effect, right? Yeah, definitely. Like it's like also learning how to be a good lover. Like when you learn the skills.
I love how he says, how to be a good lover.
Always very French, guys. Always very French. No, but it's true, because for me there's two things different, but they match together. Learn how to develop your authentic masculinity, your confidence, and learn how to be good in the bedroom. Foreplays, how, like, few positions you can be good. Also, like, guys, it's getting rid of your sexual blocks. Premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, delayed ejaculation, performance anxiety, not being able to talk about sex as well. All of these blocks, you want to work on that so that you get rid of the blocks, and then you can progress.
Yeah, because I think with something like...
You have to
no, sure, because I think with something like, say, erectile dysfunction, for example, and probably it's the same with the premature ejaculation, it's like you get into that mental cycle. People get into that mental cycle, don't they? Whereas, one time they're with a girl and it kind of doesn't happen, and then like, oh shit, next time it's going to happen, and then a lot of this stuff, I believe, is psychological, right? When I spoke to a doctor about this a while back, and he said, in a rare number of cases, there might be something physically wrong, but most of the time it's mental.
So the crazy thing is that I help men get rid of Viagra, and I have younger and younger men. Like the younger guy I helped, he was like 19, and he was on Viagra because one time he couldn't get it up because he was too stressed, which is fair enough. But then he went to see a sexologist, and the guy told him like, yeah, just pop the blue pill. But then he's like, every single time he's popping the blue pill and he's like, I don't want to rely on that. So as you said, and the crazy thing is that he was on Viagra for like 6 months, and in 2 weeks I got him off it, and he had like strong natural erections because it was psychological.
That's amazing, because as we were saying last night, I mean, I've used Viagra myself, and it's not without side effects. I mean, it works. It does what it says on the tin, but it's kind of it always makes me feel a bit ill. You get a bit headachy, you get kind of flushed, always feel really tired the next day. It's not ideal, really, and it's sort of a bit. It kind of, there's just something a bit mechanical about it, it's like bang, right, now I've got a hard on, but it doesn't feel very authentic, if that makes sense, But you can really help a guy, if he's in that situation, actually to come off that, and then what happens if then, for some reason, he has a bad experience again? Can he then click out of that mentally?
Yeah, sure. So it's, first of all, we want to ease up, like, okay, you reduce the dosage, and at the same time, you integrate some natural practices, like food, sleep, breathing, that can help you, like with all the hormones. And then psychological, it's reframing your mind. Oh, I can't have an erection naturally. Reframe that in your brain. I can have an erection naturally. If you repeat that every single day for 30 days, that's going to have a massive impact on your mindset. Yeah,
that's really interesting. The mental, because like you said, I mean, so much of this stuff is mental for sure. And this stuff could be just absolutely, like, a guy could be absolutely hamstrung in his dating life because of this, right? Because if you're, say you're nervous to approach anyway, and then on top of that, you're like, well, I may not even be able to perform if I did get her back. It's, really, it's not surprising that these guys are in their bedroom, fapping to porn. What do you think about testosterone, though? You said about the 19-year-old. Do you think this is an issue with testosterone with declining rates?
No. So, yeah, there's definitely a decline rate in testosterone. But for the young guys like that, like 95% of the time, it's stress. It's because they haven't learned that stress is the biggest killer for your erections. With smoking, drinking, and drugs, if you're stressed out, flight or fight, and you're not gonna have blood in your dick, and then you're not gonna be able to have a hard-on. But then you repeat the circle. Oh, I'm stressed, I can't have an erection. Oh, I'm gonna go to see a girl. What if I don't have an erection? And then bis repetita.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. And I mean, I've suffered with that stuff in the past. I mean, it's not a good place to be,
If I could add that, it's the same with premature ejaculation. My personal story, I was a bartender in London. I had so many.
Were you working some fancy places, or?
I did. No, Mayfair. I used to work in Mayfair. Yeah. No name.
Did you get some action from that?
So actually, that was more like in Old Street and this kind of bars when there was more actions like that.
Okay.
I was good at seducing, dating, and I had so many numbers I would never call. Why? Because I suffered from premature ejaculation, and I was like, why bother? If I go and see the girl, it's gonna be too quick, she's gonna be disappointed, so there's no point. And so many men, they suffer from that. They stop themselves to approach because they think too much about what could happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so playing devil's advocate on the porn thing for a second, is it not possible that guys could use porn, or even if not porn, at least masturbation, in order to train themselves to last longer? Is that maybe, what's your view on that?
So that's what I teach. All of my clients, I teach them about mindful masturbation. Okay. How to take yourself into your own hands and how to learn how to give yourself pleasure without relying on porn. I think porn can be good if you don't masturbate in front of it, because with porn, you can learn techniques, you can learn new practices, But like, taking care of yourself and masturbation is definitely something that I recommend.
Yeah, because that's the other thing about. I mean, again, sort of devil's advocate. Because I'm not saying that guys should be watching loads of porn. I think it's bad. I think if you're getting into anything,
overly watching porn.
Exactly. I think if you're getting obsessively into anything, it's not good. And if you're jacking off to porn like 7 hours a day, obviously that's a bad thing, and you shouldn't be doing that. However, on the other side, could you argue it's kind of educational? I mean, I've certainly picked up some moves that I've seen in porn films. Now, people will say, it's toxic because, you're going to pick up these really violent techniques and stuff. But, I mean, I think if you're sensible and you're calibrated, you can watch it. I mean, I'm not talking about some weird, crazy, extreme stuff. Just regular, sort of fairly vanilla porn videos. You can get some moves from that. And I think that's sort of quite good. So I don't know where we stand on this, really, because I'm not in any way encouraging guys to watch porn. But at the same time, arguably, maybe there are a couple of benefits.
So I would go further. I would say porn is good if you don't get addicted to it. the two good things about porn, you learn about new practices. Like you can learn how to give pleasure. If you consume ethical porn, you know, or like porn that are not treating women violently or stuff like that.
I actually quite like, I mean, it's a little bit vanilla really, but I actually quite like the porn that is more marketed at the women, actually, because that stuff tends to be a bit more sensual. Like if you're going to watch something like that, you want to see the female body, right? You want to see the beauty. What you don't want to see is some like ratchet close-ups of like a piston going into a so and sometimes ironically the stuff that's a bit more marketed towards women or couples is actually better for that, you know. And also, I guess you can see from that what women like as well. Yeah,
definitely. Like that's a great point. You learn what women they like. When you do that in the bedroom, they love it.
It's interesting because I was on a panel recently and people were talking about porn because Tiffany was on there and she does or has done porn. So they were saying, well, porn. I guess what I'm coming around to asking is how would you characterize your addiction? Like, how did it manifest? Because one of the arguments people have is, oh, porn will lead you down this dark path, and it always has to get more and more extreme, and it always has to, and it ends up with some really horrible stuff at the end of the tunnel. Personally, I think that probably happens in some cases. I don't believe that happens in every case. Because if I think about myself, I mean, I watch it, not addictively, but I watch it. Yeah, many times today. But like my usage of it has not got any more extreme. Like, basically the same sort of stuff I would have watched at 20, I probably watch now. It hasn't changed at all. Yeah. So it's not like I'm like suddenly gone down this dark tunnel of it. But I also concede that that's going to happen in some cases. But how was it for you with all that stuff?
So, me personally, I went down the rabbit hole, like too much. And that was because of life. Okay, I had problems with my parents and at school. Yeah. So, like, porn was like the go-to area to just empty my mind. Yeah. However, what I want to say is that it's true that it can lead to dark path, and what would be great is education. Let's educate our sons and daughters about porn so that they can use it not as a weapon but as a tool, and also something that when you don't overly ejaculate on it and you don't like program your mind just around porn but with good values around sex, that's also the great thing to do.
Yeah, for sure, because I mean obviously at the end this has always got to be about consent, and it's got to be about what she wants, and her allowing her to express her sexuality with you. I think that's
yours as well. That's important for men. That's important for men, for you guys as well, to know and to learn how to express your desires and your needs. Yeah. So many men they stuck, they fear to express their desires, and they have a crappy sex life.
It's really weird with addictions, right? Because I've got quite an addictive personality. Like I was. But I was like an alcoholic. I was like drinking alcoholically. I've certainly been, I'm certainly can't really touch drugs because I use drugs addictively. As you know, smoking, it's easy for me from a couple a week to suddenly it's 20 a day. So, there are some things that I'm very addictive around. But for some reason, porn hasn't really gone down. And the other one for me is gambling as well. Because some people get into gambling and I've never really got into gambling. So it's weird. There's just, I don't know. I'm addicted with a lot of things, but there are some things I just haven't been addicted with, and that's one of them.
If I can add on that, it's linked to dopamine. Like, I'm probably most of you guys, but it's like all the dopamine, like the hit in dopamine, and it's like video games. How many times do you hear about, video games, like they make young kids violent? Well, no. I know maybe one guy in my entire group of men who is violent because of video game, but video game didn't turn every man violent, Yeah. So it's also like.
Well, that's kind of what I think about porn, because when they were saying this, they were making this argument that it leads inevitably to bad things. I was thinking, but how many billions of people watch porn? I mean, it's the biggest thing in the world, right? Yeah. And it's not like everybody has become this crazed maniac, right? Obviously, a few people do, but maybe they were predisposed towards that anyway.
Yeah. And so one thing with porn is like you can see that it has a negative impact on most men. I'm not saying that they're gonna go down the really dark path, but it's still have a skewed view because they watch free porn and mainstream porn, and so it's just like eating McDonald's every day. You know it's not healthy, so you want to say, okay, a hamburger is healthy but not McDonald's. It's the same with porn. If you consume good porn, that can be good for you.
wholesome porn, organic porn, that's what No, I think you're right. I think so. If we make a distinction between, if you watch a load of porn, you're going to become some kind of crazed sex maniac and you're going to be a danger to society. I don't think that happens in the majority of cases, but the actual real danger is more you're going to become, less energy, less drive, probably more introverted. You're not going to be interacting with real women. Those are the real problems, I think, with this.
And also you won't know what to do with women. Like most men that I see, they're like, okay, but should I just put my penis in and just like go back and forth, you know?
Yeah. Well, I thought that's what you were going to do, but anyway, we'll discuss after the show. Yeah. So here's something for you, right? So as a dating coach, and I find this really fascinating, and we're in a related field, and we deal with obviously some of the same clients. We get guys, like we said earlier, who are very good looking, well put together, decent job, probably physically fit. Maybe, James is always banging on now, do combat sports and stuff like that. But some of these dudes have done combat sports. Yeah. Some of these dudes have done Muay Thai and stuff like that. And yet, their dating results are not very good. So why is that? Because there are people out here who are on the more, what they call black pill, where it's like, it's all about looks. And if you're good looking, it's fine. You're going to get laid like a carpet. If you're not good looking, you're fucked. That's not what we see, right? Because we see guys who are very good looking who just aren't really getting the results. And then we see dudes who are maybe less good looking, but they're getting crazy results. So what is the problem, do you think, with some of these good looking guys who aren't really getting the action?
Owning your masculinity and sexual confidence.
I would agree, and I'm thinking of a few people I've worked with this year, and you look at them and you think, really, that guy should be getting some decent results. And listen, man, I mean, I'm a seedy old pervert now, and I think, well, if I look at my dating life, and some of these guys, they've got the age advantage on me. They're younger. Some of them may probably better looking, maybe taller, whatever. And it's like I look at my dating life, and I'm like, well, why the fuck is this guy not getting it? So what is so and it's that missing piece, and I think a lot of it actually is down to the sex stuff, because again we say like emanating that sexual energy, that sexual confidence. I think if I look at my own game, I think one of the big things I had in my favor was the ability from the approach, but also particularly on a date, to sort of bring that sexuality into it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's because my verbal game was like amazing, or I had all these amazing stories or clever tricks or anything. I think it's just like literally sitting next to the girl and drawing her in, And I would be curious actually to know where you got that from. If you had to develop it by yourself, or did you have a mentor or a masculine figure? Well, I didn't is the answer. I think I've always been a bit of a pervert, so that's obviously helps. The other thing with me is, and I've talked about this, I've written stuff about this. I mean, I was quite heavily into, for a number of years, some of the fetish BDSM parties and stuff like that. So I don't know when you were in London if you ever went to Torture Garden.
I heard about it.
Okay, yeah. So there's that. There's one in Berlin called Kit Kat Club. Similar kind of thing, and I was going to some of these swingers events as well. There's Killing Kittens. Again, people think swingers events is going to be full of these old boilers, but this was full of very good looking women and couples and whatever. And so I got quite into this and to be clear, I mean, I was never a huge BDSM guy, really. I'm not serious. I'm not no. I never got really seriously into it, but I quite like the whole thing, like a lot of people do. And I think going to those parties quite regularly and seeing this crazy shit that was happening, getting a blowjob right in the open, people spanking each other and having sex, and then some other girl comes up to you and having sex with it, I think that kind of opens you up. So then when you're in a more vanilla situation with a girl, you're still kind of emanating that, you know what I'm saying?
This energy.
Yeah.
And also something that it's funny, because I was talking about that yesterday with a client. He told me, how can you talk about sex so easily? Well, because I talk about sex every day. Yeah. So when you practice something every day, or you like the BDSM scene quite often, you get used to it, and it's part of your identity. Yeah, exactly. And then it just becomes part of your vibe. And look, it's kind of weird for me, because you wouldn't have necessarily thought that when I was a kid. I was quite introverted, I was quite shy. I was never particularly physical as a kid. I wasn't particularly into sports. I wasn't, you know what I mean? All of not ticking any of those boxes. Never could dance, any of that shit. But somehow, and it was probably doing a boatload of drugs and alcohol, I kind of, and this is the thing, I kind of got out of my head. You open up your mind.
And opened up my mind and started just and what you realise as well with the game stuff or the dating stuff is that actually you can push the envelope with a girl in terms of what you're talking about. If you're talking about sex and touching her and escalating, you can push the envelope more than you think, or certainly more than we think as when we're the nice guy archetype,
Something that I love to say, and most men, they don't believe it's true, but it's true. Women, they love sex. Absolutely. They love sex as much as we do, maybe more.
Yeah.
But they love sex differently, maybe more emotionally, and they also want to be seduced. Okay,
Yes.
that's super important. Emotionally, if you can seduce her emotionally, and if you can excite her, arouse her emotionally, she's gonna be in your bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. And I always think the best interactions that I have, day game, night game, whatever it is, I think the best interactions are really you want to leave her a bit excited. Yes. You know, you want her to be like, oh, okay, right.
Like,
But it's like, oh, okay, I know what's up. You know, and you do that because maybe you drop in some like double meanings, or you little bit of touch, you know, the eye contact, all that kind of shit. She's like, oh, okay, I see what's up. I mean, it happened to me one time. I mean, obviously, this multiple times, but I remember one occasion when I was in Harrods in London, and I got talking to one of the sales assistants, and there was her bosses were around and everything, so you had to be like under the table, you know, kind of thing. But I got her to write a number down for me, and she said afterwards, and then we went up for a date, and she came back to my place, and it was sexual immediately, right? And afterwards, she said, yeah, you know, at first I thought you were just a customer, because I actually went in indirect, and I was asking about the jewelry and stuff. And then she said, and I saw that look in your eye, and I was like, oh, right, okay, I know what's up. And that's what you want. Yeah. You want to. And this is why we always say sexual intent, because you want her to understand, even if you're not verbalizing it. Oh, right, I know what this guy's about. Okay, he's a bit of a player. If she's into you, hopefully that excites her. She's like, right. And those girls are the ones who are more likely to come on a date because, well, you know, it's exciting and it's sexy, right? I mean, if you've just had a very nice, polite conversation about, you know, the fact that you know, you're an accountant and you fill in Excel spreadsheets, she might think you're a decent-looking guy. She might think, yeah, he's nice and everything, but is she really going to want to, you know, travel halfway across London to meet you on a Thursday night? You know,
she's never gonna do the first step. Like you're gonna be the good friend. You're gonna be in the friend zone, and that's how.
Yeah.
And I know that for a lot of guys, introverted guys, they are like, oh, but I don't have a look. I don't know the body language. I don't know these kind of things. The important things you can learn. You learn, especially with day game, with gaming, seduction, this kind of thing. You learn how to be masculine. You learn how to please a woman also with your body, with your look, with your words.
Yeah, you have to take some risks as well, I think, in all these interactions. You have to push the envelope. Now, again, you know, trigger warning, we're not talking about doing anything that she doesn't want you to do. We're not talking about pushing, you know, doing things, you know, in any sort of sinister way. But in a kind of fun, flirty, teasy way, you always want to be pushing the boundaries. And what you find is that often if she likes you, she's going to go along with that. And listen, in my younger days, I had plenty of dates where I didn't make the move, and you know, I lost out, right? And you know, you look back and you think, shit, if I'd have just kissed her then, if I'd have just done that, something probably would have happened, and it probably would. But I mean, have you noticed? I think the window can close, the opportunity can go.
Yes, but that's the thing. Like, if you don't act, someone else will. Like another man will, because he will be more sexual and he will do it. And again, you have to be comfortable doing it. You take some risk at the beginning, but guess what? You get better at it. When you learn how to be more confident, more sensual, more sexual, you get good at it, and then you see women, they react to it, and you're like, oh my God, I can feel it. Like, she's more sexual, she's vibing, she's touching me. Now there is a connection.
Yeah, and what I would generally do is it's this push-pull thing, and you're sort of testing the boundaries. So it's like you might touch her or something like that, and if at any point she's a bit like, oh, you know, she's a bit uncomfortable, it's like, oh, hey, listen, I'm just messing around. I'm an English gentleman, really. I don't know what came over me. So anyway, tell me more about your job, blah, blah, blah. And then a little bit later, maybe you try again. Yeah. So it's you've got to be very calibrated to her. Yes. It's like, okay, so what is her boundary here? Yeah. And you push slightly against that boundary, but not too much, in a respectful kind of way, and then you pull back. And I also think never be butthurt about it. If she says, I'm not coming back with you tonight, okay, fine, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. Something that help a lot of men that I help and I coach, it's the 3 levels of sexual escalation, how to talk about sex. First level, just talk about something related to the body, you know, or to the beach, like dancing, these kind of things. Second level is what you were talking about, using humor, innuendos, like, oh, so you really like the red color, don't you? Yeah. And boom, like all of a sudden you create this, like what is he talking about? Yeah. And then the third level, if you're with a very confident woman, like in Colombia, for example, you can go and talk about sensuality and sexuality openly, because she's open about it and she's confident in her own skin, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I do this a little bit less these days, but I've been on dates with women where we've actually been on the date and I've been telling her exactly, you know, exactly what I'm going to do with her when I get her home and stuff, and she's getting really turned on, and then she comes back. So I guess that's level 3. You know, you've moved up to level 3, and when you do that and she's vibing with that, it's pretty much a done deal, or a fait accompli. You know, it's pretty much it's on by that point.
But if I can add on that, like a lot of men, they don't recognize the signs when the light is green, you know. Like the woman, she's all over them and stuff, and he's like, should I ask? Like, I don't know, I'm not sure and stuff. And like also recognize the sign that she's into you and she's into you sexually as well.
And can you help guys to recognize those signs? Because I think that's a difficult thing to teach sometimes.
So it's a mix of verbal cues and non-verbal cues. Like, I'm pretty sure if you've been following Troy for a while, body language, you talk a lot about body language. So if she's like leaning up towards you, if she's opening up her hair, opening up like the arms, the legs, licking her lips, touching her lips.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, what I will often do as well is, in a date scenario, first of all, I think being assumptive is key. So the assumption is, she's into me, she wants to have sex with me. She's on a date with you. Yeah, so you can assume that may not be the case, and if it isn't, fine, but you go in with that assumption. I'm a high-value man, she's into me. What I'll usually do is, well, we don't want to be too, but you know, you're sitting next to her, you know, you're like this, you know, you start to put her in, and what I will often do as well is, you know, I sometimes get her legs and put her legs over mine. So immediately you're sitting together in this very coupley but quite sexual kind of a way. I did it recently in Mexico, and you know, and then you're just playing with her hair. You can sometimes tug on the hair a little bit, you know. You can kiss the neck, and you know, all this kind of shit. And it's just I'm very, I suppose, not in every single day, but most of the time I'm very confident in that. Now, if she is like, whoa, that's a bit fast, then fine. You know, I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to be, you know, pushy about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, no worries. So anyway, you know, let's talk about X, Y, Z, right? But most cases when they're there, and it comes down to the pre-filtering, because a lot of the time, the girls, again, not all the time, obviously things slip through the net, but most of the time, the girls that come on a date with me, they're already,
they know,
up for it to some extent, because they know from the approach that I'm presenting as quite a sexualized figure. So that polarizes, and the ones who aren't into that, they're just not going to come on the date. So generally speaking, the ones come on the date are kind of up for it, and then it's my job to move that forward.
Piggyback on that. Like, one thing that my sex coach shared with me that I love, she said, if you go on a date, like a first date with a woman, and you can't talk about sex, that means you're looking for a roommate. Like, it's kind of true for me, because you need to be able to express yourself sexually and to talk about sex, because like, ideally, if you have a first date, you don't want just to be a roommate. You want to be sensual and physical with her. So you need to be able to express that as well. You can calibrate. Every woman are different. That's important. But when you calibrate that, like, you will see every woman will react to you in a sensual yet sexual vibe.
I was looking at my phone there, because just as an example of, I guess this might be level 1, or probably level 1 actually, but there's a girl that I'm sort of talking to. I mean, and I mentioned to her, I sent her a tune, and she said, oh, I like that tune. And I said, yeah, I heard it the other week. I said, I was in Miami, and this friend of ours, a DJ, was playing. And I said, it was actually a party in a strip club, and so I was surrounded by naked women, ha, 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 ha. And then she comes back, and she's like, oh, what a cool experience. And she's like, you know, fire emojis and stuff. So it's not, that's, as I say, quite a low-level thing.
I would say second level already.
But it's so why did I do that? Well, partly because it's kind of a cool story. But secondly, because it's like, look, I like naked women. I'm a sexual dude. I'm going to talk about that. If you take offense at that for some reason, then that's on you. But this is, you know what I'm saying? It's
that's
like being
filter.
comfortable.
You're filtering
yeah.
the woman.
Now she came back positively, but it's being comfortable with talking about sexuality and presenting yourself as a sexual person, I think. You know what I'm saying?
And I think it's really good that you bring that up, because it's not about the woman, it's about you. It's like self-love. You can't love a woman if you don't love yourself. You can't love fully someone if you don't love yourself. And it's the same. You can't have sex and be sexual with someone if you're not confident sexually in your own skin.
I think there's also something nice about being kind of authentic as well. And it's kind of like, we got to fucking own it. I mean, we are guys, you know, I mean, as politically incorrect as it is now. You know, we like to hell with it. But you know, we like women. We you know, we respect women. We love women as people, as individuals. But also, obviously,
and women love men.
Exactly. But we also find them sexy, right? And I think owning that and being just very transparent about that with the women you come into contact with, and not trying to hide behind, oh, I want to be friends with you, or I just, you know, want to have some intellectual conversation or something. I think it's good to just own that. And you know, some women, if they're not down with that with you, fine, they're gonna move away. But that you probably didn't want to deal with them anyway.
Exactly. One really good book that I would recommend you guys to read is Why Women Have Sex by David Buss.
Yeah.
Really, really good book, because that really dives deep into why women, they are sensual and what they are looking for in terms of the reasons for having sex.
And the interesting thing about women as well, a lot of them are sort of, their sexuality at least is fluid. So you could also, sometimes you can talk about sexy women, or like, oh, look at her, isn't she looking sexy in that dress and stuff like that. And it kind of, that could almost get her more turned on in a sense. Not that she's necessarily going to do anything with that girl, but you know what I mean? Like, you can, they're very, very sensual creatures. I think probably more than we are.
Oh, definitely.
And you can really tap into that, you know?
Yeah. It's like men are like fire and women, they're like water. Men, they're very quick to ignite, but once it's done, it's done. Women, women, when they take quite a long time to boil, but once they boil for a really long time.
Well, have you noticed? I mean, maybe you guys at home have noticed, when you start dating a girl, you know, like at the beginning, it's like, oh no, I don't normally do this, and
yes.
Or maybe she, you know, she doesn't want to come home with you on the first date, and you know, it takes some time and everything. But then once you've moved, you know, you've had sex, you've moved into that, and then suddenly it's like every night, oh, I come around, you know, and it's like, oh Jesus, I gotta go to sleep, and she's like, no, let's bang, you know, oh, for fuck's sake. So once the floodgate, well, innuendo, once the floodgates are open, they go very sexual, I think.
And I think, like, also a lot of men, they mess up in the relationship because they think that, oh, I've seduced her once, now I don't have to seduce her anymore. Always, for me, you always have to make your woman feel desirable, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's where you will have great sex during the whole relationship. Can be a one-night stand, can be a long-term, but always seduce woman. Like, that has to be part also of your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're getting into like long-term relationships and stuff is, you know, slightly it's a whole topic in itself. But I mean, the bottom line is you've got to keep it exciting,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I think sex is, I mean, sex for a start is kind of the glue, isn't it? Really, that holds relationships together. And you've got to be like, on the one hand, you might be like, oh, I'm getting a bit bored with this chick, and you're looking around. But remember that she is as well. That's the problem. And especially in this day and age, you know, we've got Instagram and all that kind of shit. So you've got to be, I mean, it's tough. They say that long-term relationships are playing the game on hard mode, and there's some truth in that, right? It's kind of easier in a way to be the traveling playboy, and you're just dating, you date her for a bit, then you date her. Trying to keep something long-term going with somebody, you've got to be on your, not on your game the whole time, but you've got to find ways to keep the vibe going.
And so, like, that's why it's not like teaching you some tricks and stuff like that. It's really you guys learning how to be your best sexual self every single day, you know. Sometimes you're tired and stuff, I can understand. But if you're sensual, sexual naturally, like you're a very sensual man, and we can feel the vibe. It's true, it's showing off, but it's true. But because it's part of your identity, you're not wearing a mask. That's who you are. And so when you're like that, women love it for the authenticity.
Yeah. No, I think that's correct, and I also like that as well. Now, again, you know, not every woman's going to like you. There are some women who I could do the best approach or whatever in the world, and she wouldn't want to. I'm just not her type. That's fine. But the ones who are kind of into me, those are the ones I want to bring in this element, you know, and really from the beginning. Yeah. You know, and you start very slow, and then you amp it up slowly. But I want to be bringing this vibe in because it's like, okay, look, I do find you interesting as a person. I want to get to know you. I think you've got a great life, you've got great stuff going on as a woman, but also there is this sexual element. We can't ignore that. We can't pretend it's not there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And if she doesn't want to vibe with me on that level, that's fine, but I'm not going to hide it. You know what I mean? And
I feel that talking about sex and being sexual straight from the get-go during the first approach or the first date is the best filter, because you're like, if she's vibing with you sexually, that means that in the bedroom it's probably gonna be great. If you're not vibing sexually during the first date, even though you will have sex with some techniques, the sex is gonna be bad.
Just one thing I've always been interested in. Why is it that you think some you have more sexual chemistry with some women, like in the bedroom, like the sex is just somehow better with some women. Do you think there's some? Is it one of these undefinable things where it's sort of just a mystery, really? Because I've met women, she's really attractive, you know, she obviously likes me, we have sex, it's good, but it's not, you know. And then there are other women, just for some reason. Maybe it's something to do with the pheromones or DNA, or I don't know what it is.
So pheromones is a big topic, man, but I really do think that it goes down to confidence about your own sexuality and your own body. Like, you can have a woman who is not the most attractive, but because she feels really good in her own skin, she's gonna be a tiger in the bedroom. And you can have models, like I've met models who were just like, they had so much shame and they were so blocked sexually that they would be starfish in the bedroom.
Yeah, because that's the other thing, I guess, as well. The other side of all of this is, I guess, a lot of women have sexual shame as well, right?
We all carry it, but it's different from men for women. Women, it's a lot of traumas with like insecurities and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you have to get rid of your traumas so that you can have a better life.
I guess where women often have a bit of an advantage is that even if she is carrying this stuff, if she's attractive enough, she's going to get hit on anyway. So from her point of view, she could be having a lot of, and I've met women of different degrees of sexuality. Some are very, very sexual, some are, you know, less so and whatever. But it doesn't matter because she's going to get guys engaging with her anyway. And the problem for us guys is, because we're the ones who have to make the action, unfortunately, we need to sort this stuff out. Because if we're coming across as Mr. Boring, Mr. Not Sexual, she's going to be less inclined to vibe with us, right? So, unfortunately, as with all of these things, the onus really is on us as guys to sort this shit out.
But the positive note is that once you sort this shit out, like, the door is completely open. Like, you literally transform your life by getting rid of the blocks and the sexual shame, and then it's like you're in the candy store. You're like, shit, for 10 years I've suffered from sexual shame. I didn't meet a woman, and all of a sudden, like, women, they're looking at me in a different way. Yeah,
I think that if I look at my journey with dating and stuff, I think there were a couple of things that really changed the game for me. One of them was approaching more. But I mean, that's pretty simple, right? That's the first thing. And not caring about rejection. The second thing, and I suppose a second thing is not putting them on a pedestal and being like, hey, I've got value, and coming at it from that angle. But the third thing, really important thing, is the sexual side. When I realized that you could be more sexual than I ever thought with a woman, even from very early in the interaction or on the first date or whatever, it changed up everything for me. And it really, really changed up my results, you know?
And if I can add the tool, what you're doing with Tiffany, with Tiffany, it's great, is having women's perspective. Guys, if you can talk about sex with women, not on a first date, just have some woman's friend or whatever, and talk about sex and ask them, what do they like, what are men doing right, what are men doing wrong. Having the woman's perspective can really open up also your possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people often don't trust female dating coaches advising men, and I kind of understand why, because they haven't been through that whole process. But equally, I think one of the good things about a lot of the podcasts now, when they bring on girls and hear it from a girl's point of view, is obviously, like, you're talking to them, you're asking them questions. They, you know, it's valuable to hear that shit, you know? I'll tell you what, one of my favorite French clips. Have you seen the clip of Serge Gainsbourg when he's on the, you know, the French singer? When with Whitney Houston. Have you ever seen that?
Oh yes.
When he's like, she comes on and he's drunk and he's like, I wanna fuck you.
It's so French.
That's Edge, guys. That's Edge. That's one of my favorite clips ever. Although obviously ended very sadly, because obviously Whitney Houston. What was ironic actually was Serge Gainsbourg was, you know, an alcoholic or whatever, right? So there was that. But what people didn't realize at the time was that Whitney Houston had her own problems, you know? And it's kind of, but it was just, I mean, he would be cancelled these days if you did that. But it's just such an amazing piece of television. He's like, I want to fuck you. And they're like, oh, whoa.
But you see, like, this is the perfect example. I know, like, it's a song and it's a clip and whatever, but this is the kind of men who are not the best looking, but because they know women's psychology, they know how to be sensual, they could get all the women they want.
It's kind of interesting with him, actually. I quite like Serge Gainsbourg. I like some of the songs and stuff like that. But he was with that girl, Jane Birkin, for a long time. Now, she was really hot. I mean, there's some great pictures of them. You know, she's wearing a see-through dress. She was really, really hot back in the day. And he was not a great looker, let's face it. You know, and he was not particularly tall, not particularly handsome. I mean, kind of like sort of iconic, but kind of not classically handsome. And yet he was with Jane Birkin, who was one of the most beautiful women in the world at the time. Now, people will say, well, yeah, but he was famous, you know. But that... It doesn't mean everything, because there were plenty of famous guys. So she probably could have dated any number of famous guys. So why is she with him? Well, I suspect it's something to do with his persona, because the way he's coming across, you know, and you know, obviously a very artistic, very creative, very talented guy. I suspect probably sexual as well. Yeah. You know, like unapologetic in his sexuality, and you know, he snagged one of the most beautiful women who was around at that point. So it's people like that I find really fascinating. You know, I mean, another more modern example is when Pete Doherty from the Libertines was dating Kate Moss. You know, now again people will say, well, he's tall, you know, he's famous, but okay, but again, she could have dated pretty much anybody. So why did she pick him? He's the bad boy, he's the rebel, he's the, you know, he's got that sort of side to his personality.
Someone I love as well is Bill Burr. When you like Bill Burr is the one saying I'm a redhead, and you could see that he has a lot of women, and his woman, she's a beautiful woman because he has the humor, he has the sense of humor, he has this confidence, this really authentic confidence that is attractive for women. Yeah.
So again, I mean, we need to get away from the whole black pill, like, oh, it's only looks, and you know, because it's so much more than that, and we see that with the coaching, don't we? So
and I can't tell you how many like clients I have, like models, literally models, male models who are like, I can't have sex, I don't know what's happening, like it's crazy. And on the opposite side, I have guys like fat with glasses and stuff, and they're just like having women all around because they know how to dance, they know how to move, they know how to talk to women, and it's beautiful to watch. But this is the thing as well, it's like, it's not the look.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get some. I mean, so we were talking to. There's a guy who's with us this weekend, very good looking, you know, in great shape and stuff. And he was saying last night, he's saying, I don't really get approached. I mean, sometimes girls will come and dance near to me or something. They don't approach, and you know, and if you're not doing the right things in terms of your personality, you're going to leave a lot on the table. Because I've also seen women get turned off. You know, initially, and this has even happened to me. Like initially, she probably likes you physically. She's like, yeah, he's good looking, whatever. Okay, I want to get to know this guy. If you go over and then there's no spark, there's no vibe, they can lose interest pretty quickly. Yeah. And you can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. You know what I'm saying?
And it's almost like that's the worst that can happen to a woman. Like she meets a guy who is really handsome and she goes to talk to him and there's no energy, no fire or stuff. And she's like, why?
Well, so and it's interesting because one criticism that gets leveled against Tusk quite a lot. People are like, oh, Tusk's a good looking guy, so yeah, it's easy for him, blah, blah, blah. Well, he is, but he's also got the other stuff dialed up to the max, right? And if he didn't have the other stuff, you know, how much that's learned and how much that's natural. I think talking to him, I think a lot of it's learned, really. But he's got that charisma and that ability to bring this. Well,
been there, done that.
You know what I'm saying. And it's like, well, it's sure, he's a decent looking guy, he's in shape, but if he didn't have those other aspects, would he be getting the results? Probably not, right?
Mm-hmm. And like, one of the best advice I give clients or men that I meet in terms of dating, what's the best advice you can give to get women, is that be the best version of yourself. Don't focus on the woman, focus on you. Like work out, eat healthy, have a healthy mindset, you know, all these kind of things. If you work on yourself and you're happy with yourself, you will see that you will attract naturally women. Yeah. You will be authentic, and the women you will resonate with, they will come towards you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. I think we want to be maxing out in all of these areas. And the only other thing I would just repeat is that I think just being unapologetic in your sexuality. You are a sexual being. You do find women attractive. And guys also will sometimes think, oh, but if I indicate to her that I think she's hot, then I'm losing power, I'm putting her on the pedestal. No. I mean, the mindset I have is like, look, I think you're hot. I think you're a cute girl. But I want to get to, what else is good about you? I want to get to know you more. Are you somebody I really want to spend time with? Because I think, I walk out the apartment, I see like 100 girls a day I think are hot, right? So it's not this huge accolade for her. It's like, yeah, you're cute, you know, you seem cool. Let me find out a bit more about you and let's see if we vibe, right? So you're acknowledging the beauty, but you're not going to die if she turns you down.
And also, like, when you do approach ladies, if you really want to have great sex and have great connection, it's not just the look. You see a beautiful woman in the street, and for me, in your mind, you should be, I want to know if she's as beautiful inside as she's outside. And I want to know if she's as sexually beautiful that she's outside.
Yeah, it's a weird combination of things for me who I find attractive, because on the one hand, people think, yeah, man, it's all about looks and stuff. And there's truth in that. You know, we are driven physically, but the women that I have a real vibe with, there's usually something else about them. You know, they usually got this. It's something to do with their personality as well. And I'm looking for that. You know, I don't really want to be with some girl who's she may be pretty, but she's a bit fucking boring. You know, like I want somebody with a bit of an edge as well, right? So, but anyway, let's just talk about when you work with guys. So what kind of programs do you offer, and what sort of transformation do you offer when you work with dudes?
So I do either like really intensive coaching, like we work on few weeks, few sessions, usually to get rid of blocks, premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, or performance anxiety.
And what about porn stuff as well?
Porn stuff as well is part of it, that I have a protocol that I share with men to either stop completely directly or just to ease off porn. It really depends on the type of man that I have.
Yeah.
And also like the full transformative coaching program, it's really from 0 to hero, introverted guys who just want to become sexually and have the best sex of their life.
Brilliant, good stuff. Okay, and look, if you're interested in working with Mr. Bonaparte, and you certainly should, because as I say, this stuff is, yes, you need to get proficient in the bedroom, and also you'll teach them what to do in the bedroom as well. Like give
skills
some,
and all the skills to be a good lover, like foreplays, give multiple orgasms, all that kind of stuff.
Because we can't underestimate the importance of that. Because again, I was talking to Tiff about this the other week, and obviously, it's kind of a no-brainer. But if you give her good sex, she's more likely to want to hang around and come back. And guys are also bothered about retention, aren't they? You want to pull the girl, but then you probably want to keep her around.
Exactly. And what I teach is that how do you become an unforgettable lover?
Right.
Like become the become the type of lover that women will call you back for more.
Yeah.
Like they will call you back every single week. Like when are we seeing each other?
Yeah, no, you're right. When the sex clicks, then you're in a very good place, because she's going to want to come back for more. So you need to get this stuff dialed in. But equally, so there's the bedroom itself, but then there's also getting confident with this stuff is going to help you in the approach. It's going to help you get numbers, get dates, and all of that. So it really, really is one of the... This is probably... We've been talking a lot about hormones this year as well, and getting testosterone and stuff. That's extremely important. I think this is all...
That I cover as well.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. So, and this is equally, if not more important, because if you don't have this dialed in, you really are leaving opportunities on the table.
Like you can have the biggest testosterone level in the world if you don't know how to use it.
Well, so that's an interesting point as well, because I've been talking to James about this, because then you'll meet dudes. I mean, the hormone thing I think is complicated, because yes, there's testosterone, but then there's other things that could affect it as well. So you need to get a proper panel done. But regardless of that, there are guys who are pretty high T.
Yeah.
And they're still not emanating the sexuality.
Yeah.
So it's not entirely about sexuality. Yeah. I mean, testosterone. I mean, it probably, if you're low T, that's probably hindering you. Yeah. But even high T guys are sometimes not able to express this sexuality, and that's a problem.
And so that's the thing. I have a lot of men that comes and they're like, "Oh, I've optimized my testosterone, and I don't understand. Like my libido is bad, and I can't connect with women." That's what we were talking about. The mindset. You can have the best hormones in the world. If you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the right skills.
Mindset is so important, because again, James has been talking a lot about combat sports, fighting and stuff like that. And I started boxing training this year, and it's been great. But I mean, I've met dudes, as I say, who've done martial arts for years, and they're probably doing testosterone, or they're sorting out their testosterone, and they're still not sexual. Yeah. So there is a missing piece, and that I think is the mindset, and that can be learned.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've learned as well as a former personal trainer. Like I'm a mental preparator, and how do you prepare someone for the game? Like the game is sex. How do you prepare someone mentally so that when you arrive in the bedroom, you are like, this is my place. I know what it is. Like I know the drill, And that's all about mindset training and very little practice, small, efficient exercises can make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Très bien, and I hope we will catch up again soon. And I mean, this has been a really great conversation. So guys, if you resonate with this stuff, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, or you can DM me on Twitter or Instagram, and we can figure out, we'll sort out, we'll get you in touch with Mr. Napoleon, and we'll get your sex life sorted out. This stuff is super important. So thanks ever so much, dude. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're going to go out and party tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely, bro. Cheers.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye-bye.